Golly gee, Denver music fans, we sure have an exciting one for you today. Clark Saturn, one of the most influential figures in Denver electronic music history, has agreed to meet up with me at the Enigma Bazaar in Mountain View. I did a video about him a while ago, but I'm really looking forward to seeing this guy in person. This guy, he practically wrote the book on Denver electronics. So let's go. Alright, we're here with Clark Saturn.
Is this thing working through that?
Clark Saturn. We're at LD50PH10, Socks and Sandals. Lots of great Denver acts that defined Denver electronic. You're one of the progenitors of Denver electronic, essentially. Would you argue that?
We were right in there. Like we were really heavily inspired by Foreskin 500.
Right.
I think it was sort of the real, like they were the pioneers in many ways. I think of what we were doing back in the day. Rico and Helmet and all of the guys from LD50 were like, you know, in fact we played a show with Foreskin 500. That was kind of like a seminal show. Yeah, they were kind of like, to us they were like the kings.
You say you got in early on the wave.
Yeah, I think so.
Like first wave of Denver electronic.
Yeah.
When it was first getting big.
Yeah.
What do you prefer about the Denver music scene in particular?
Well, from what I know right now, you mean, or thinking back then, or like now?
Right now.
Yeah. Well, I don't come around much, so I only know from bits I see like on various social media and stuff like that. But from what I gather, there's like the music scene here is huge, and there's like I've heard about the Mission Ballroom, the Cervantes, the Ogden. There's just all these Bluebird and things in Boulder, and there's like so many good venues around here, and also there are clearly a lot of promoters like putting on big shows and stuff all the time, it seems like. So like I've been paying attention to some of the EDM folks and the like dubstep and bass music folks, and it seems like there are a ton of them that live in Denver now or are constantly like playing here at least.
Right.
So it's like a destination for sure.
Now, continuing on that line of thought, what are your thoughts on modern EDM and its popularity?
Well, I guess as somebody who's been more or less in that genre area since, you know, the early 90s, mid 90s, it's interesting how it kind of goes in waves, you know. I mean, I'm kind of an outsider to a certain degree, so I don't know if anything I say will be of, you know, great insight, but I guess it is interesting how it goes in these waves. Like drum and bass becomes kind of big, and then it kind of goes, and then there's more dubstep or whatever, and they're all kind of like, you know, house music and all those different things are kind of ebbing and flowing. I don't even know what the numbers, you know, I kind of like the numbers in terms of data and stuff like that. I wonder what they say about the different genres, and like it seems to me like dubstep and bass music are having a day right now, like more general EDM. For example, I live in Baltimore, and there's a festival that happens just a few blocks from my house, called the Moonrise Festival, and so it's been going on for like 7 or 8 years, and since it's in my neighborhood, I get to go for free usually every year. And so I'll go, because I wouldn't pay $300 for a ticket. Like I usually know like 2 people on the bill or something like that. But then I'll go look them all up and listen to stuff to hear if there are like new artists that I really like and stuff like that. And every time I find new artists that I am fond of, like Canopolis, that this last one was a good find. Just from that experience of like, as someone who wasn't making music for basically 15 years, and was just kind of like focusing on family and career and so on, but I would go to this festival, and that was like still having a little foot in the door of like being able to see what was going on and stuff on the different stages. And even like at that festival, so like the stage that had like house music and stuff was basically gone last year, Celestial Garden stage. So it was more just like, you know, the 2 big huge stages of like the biggest huge names, and then the one like tent kind of area. Anyway, there was still a bunch of house music and acid and stuff like that.
Would you say that in general, whenever electronic kind of curves down, rock curves up, and vice versa? Like for instance, in 2000s, the emo and like that got big and went back to guitar, and then in the early 2010s, dubstep kind of rises up and kind of does away with the emo. You'd say it's kind of a yin-yang type situation between rock and electronic?
Maybe so, yeah. I mean, for me, I guess it is. I mean, I also have, like, I was in the 90s, I was so into, like, the Pixies and Smashing Pumpkins and Sonic Youth, and then, like, My Bloody Valentine and Medicine, and, like a whole range of different, like, rock sounds and stuff.
And you say generally, like, the public sentiment towards, like, so-called real instruments, everyone goes guitar and then everyone goes synth, and it kind of goes back and forth.
It feels to me like people, that's almost like a riff that a lot of people don't cross. I mean, that's my sense. I feel like there are so many people who are like guitar and bass oriented, or like they don't want anything to do with electronic, and then like similarly there are a lot of people who are like all electronic and don't want anything to do with like instruments or guitar and bass.
All right. You say Denver's music scene has substantially changed over the past 20 years, from what you've seen of it.
Yeah, I'm a little too far removed right now to really know, but it seems from just my general sense is that it's exploded since even I was living here.
In the 90s, there was less.
I think so. Although a lot of the venues are still around, which is great. Like the Mercury Cafe, the 7 South, which is something else now. There's, oh man, I can't even think of all of them. I saw Skinny Puppy play at that place down on Broadway a ways, on the right side of Broadway. I don't remember the name of that place, but it was another great venue. The Ogden Theater.
Ogden.
The Bluebird, I don't know, I guess that's still around, right?
Yeah, it's still
There's so many of these great spots. And the I never got to see a show at the Oriental, but my colleague Recone Helmet from PH10 played a show. PH10 played it at the Oriental.
I would argue that in general, music venues have the most stability in Denver. Restaurants don't have much.
Oh, interesting.
Music venues have a lot of stability.
Right, yeah.
What songs are you currently working on, and which is your favorite?
Oh, wow, okay. I like this question a lot.
Yeah.
So the reason I'm actually here in Denver is because Recone is helping me mix like 4 or 5 new tracks. This is basically an EP that I'm planning to come out with this year, but I'm just going to release one song at a time, and then when they're all done, then that'll be combined into an EP that's called Alien Pole Dance. And the first track, I already released one track, was Why You Gotta Gaslight, which just came out a couple weeks ago. And that was like a buddy of mine in Colorado as well, in Lafayette, who runs the Lafayette, is part of the Lafayette, part of one of the maybe co-creators of the Lafayette Electronic Arts Festival. David Fidel did a video for that, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Recone and I were working on mixing like these new tracks, and one of the ones I'm most excited about will probably be the next release, which is called A Visitation. And it's like the start of the whole EP, and it's really kind of sets the tone. No vocals on it, which a lot of times lately I've been using vocals in most of my tracks. So that one's vocal free essentially. But I think you can tell from the title A Visitation where the theme is there.
Is it exciting to get back into into electronic production after so many years?
So I can't tell you how exciting, how excited I am, because it's like just being back working with Recone in the studio and like mixing and just like talking about it back and forth about what if we did this, what if we did that, and then like mixing it down and listening to it on different systems and stuff. It's
taking the plunge, right?
So much fun, and it's a way level up from what I was doing, because I was doing everything myself. I was mixing, I was mastering or whatever. I don't have the skills, frankly, to really do it at a higher level, and like Recone does. So I'm actually, with this track, this EP, I feel like the songs are strong enough, much more stronger than some of the ones in the past, in maybe a way, that basically it's a new EP, a new level, a new thing. So like I'm getting it more officially mixed and more officially mastered.
Okay. What advice would you give to any aspiring electronic musician today?
Well, I feel like electronic musicians today, aspiring ones especially and included, actually, I need advice from them.
You feel out of your depth?
In some respects, yeah. I mean, my dream, I'll tell you that, well, first of all, okay, this doesn't really answer your question, but my dream would be to be able to create like I'm doing right now, which I'm just loving, spare time between coaching baseball and working full time and doing whatever else around the house. I'm like, oh, let me go get an hour making music. Let me get 30 minutes making music. This to me is just like a wonderful thing. What I'd love to be able to do is like just take these things that I've created, even if they're not finished, and have like a partner or somebody else who can take them and see the same vision to like finish them and get them sounding more professional, because I don't have those kind of skills,
Right.
But for aspiring musicians, the thing is everything has changed since I got into this so much. When I was in LD50, I was using rack mount samplers, no laptops or anything like that. It was all hardware. And then eventually, with Socks and Sandals, I moved over to laptop and getting rid of all the hardware. And luckily, I learned how to use Ableton Live at that point, which I find very helpful, but I'm still kind of a novice at using it. But at any rate, it's very helpful for the creative process. I think that's the key, is just like for aspiring musicians to like find a process, and also to just like release stuff, like find a path, the path of least resistance to just releasing stuff. Because if you're just sitting on all of this stuff and not releasing it, it's good, I think, for people to do it for the love of it and just for themselves, right? And not have to feel like they want to release it, which is great. I'm not like I'm a good example, because I've been releasing stuff for like a year, and I don't feel like I'm getting any traction outside of myself. But that's, to me, it doesn't matter, because I'm having so much fun. So that, I think, hopefully would be the message that hopefully somebody would be helpful to somebody.
You feel kind of like you're also getting new into it all over again, huh?
Yeah. We were doing stuff in Brooklyn in the 2000s, and then I went off and did other stuff for 15 years and put my focus elsewhere, and it's just, it just feels really good to get back into that scene. It's something that I clearly was not complete, because things have just been flowing out of me in terms of like 15 years of not doing it,
Yeah, I brought something for you here.
Dang.
Portrait, signed and autographed, suitable for framing.
God, I love that. Thank you. Man, I am honored. I am honored.
Only so many of those, limited run.
Hell yeah.
Only make them at figures around the Denver scene I think are worthy of it. And I have to say, I mean, you pretty much wrote the book on Denver electronics. Yeah.
I appreciate you. Nicholas Comics are the tops.
All right, well, wasn't that something? It's really an honor to have come into contact with one of Denver's most important musical figures. I find that oftentimes the most important historical figures get completely overlooked, so I'm happy to bring exposure to them. Until next time, stay comicked.